Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So from an agent that claimed they'd been through the house 3 times but never opened the lockbox. So they must have come through on some open houses. But
What
not
was
when I
the
was there.
what was the offer for?
Somebody from HomeSmart.
Okay.
I can't talk about that.
Can't talk about price.
I can't disclose it all right now. Yeah.
But it was close.
Yeah. That was good. All right, guys. So
Somebody trying to get in.
thank you all for being here.
Leela. Hi, Leela.
Hi. It's Leela. Hi, Leela.
Hi.
Hi,
I'd hoped to be there in person, but I was doing this water rights class all morning, and it went late, and it was amazing.
No.
Water rights?
You'll have to tell us all about it sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was well. They're having her present to the luxury group in January, but that'll only be half an hour, and this was like almost 3.5 hours. It was really good, and I have notes and I'll have a PowerPoint.
Yeah, there's some really interesting stuff going on with water rights right now, and we need to have some discussions about that because those people that live out north of Fountain Hills over there around Rio Verde,
right? Yeah, that's an issue.
Yeah, there are some problems going on out there. We should probably have some discussion about that.
Yeah,
but that's a later class.
She was speaking about the whole overall like Arizona and then the particulars of where there are issues like Rio Verde versus here in Phoenix and why it's not an issue, and really like laid out an excellent foundational information just on everything around Arizona and water rights. It was really good.
Who was the class taught by?
Hold on a second. I have her Sarah Porter. I think she's the executive director of the Kyle Center for Water Policy at the Morrison Institute think tank. She's really smart. Very smart lady.
There was a time about 20 years ago that people used to refer to me as a water rights expert, but that was, again, 20 years ago. So.
Well, it sounds like it really hasn't changed that much. It's just being aware of like where the things that are happening now are and are not impacting us. But because of the Groundwater Act that we put into place in 1980, it's taken care of a lot. And so there's all kinds of great graphs and information to be able to demonstrate why we're okay here.
Yeah.
So maybe we can get that person to come in and talk at one of our meetings.
She said, well, that came up as a question at the end. And that was when she said something about, I'll be speaking at yes, I've done things for realtor groups before, and I'm happy to do that. And I'm going to be speaking at this luxury group. At which point then somebody asked about luxury. And so I put in the link for the website and pitched the luxury group.
Nice.
Which is cool. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's pick it back up again on page 7, line 296K. Home warranty plan.
So we're starting with home warranty plans. So I always recommend that the buyer get a home warranty plan, even if they have to pay for it themselves. Reason being, if home buyer or somebody that's used every last penny of their money to get into this property with down payment and closing costs, and they move in, and the day they move in, the air conditioner doesn't work. And I've had it happen at least 3 times. It was working fine on the walkthrough. They close the next day, they move in the day after that, and the AC's out. 3 times it has happened in recent memory. So this is where, and if they don't have a home warranty plan, they're going to be mad at. They're going to be mad at you. So
the seller.
Well, and the seller, yeah, but you're the first line of attack. Right. So yeah. And especially in this market, it is difficult to get the seller to pay for them. We still always ask for it, but we don't always get it. So we encourage the buyer to pay for them themselves. What we like to do is with all this recent stuff about how we can be sued for recommendations that we give. So we have, so when a buyer says to us, oh, who would you use? Now what we do is we offer them 3 choices or 4 choices, and we send them the names, the website, the contact information, and say, please review these plans and decide which one you want to know, which one you want to get, and we'll order it for you.
It's nice that we have a relationship with a couple of the home warranty companies, with Old Republic who Kim Farrar comes to all of our meetings. So, you know, we've got a good relationship with her, as well as with Jamie with American Home Shield. We've got a good relationship with him as well. So we've had better luck with some rather than others. Oh my God. So we've had luck with some better than others as far as home warranty companies go. Just on a personal note for myself, I would prefer Old Republic because we've had much better luck getting things done with Old Republic than we have with some of the other ones. So I would always recommend Old Republic to be one of the at least 3 that you recommend to them. So you can do Old Republic, First American, all of those. There's a ton of different ones over here. And if you're not sure which ones to recommend, there's over on the shelf over here against the wall, there's a half a dozen home warranty companies that you can give them the flyer or the email address and the website of those home warranty companies. Sounds like Mike's here.
First American used to be the gold standard. They have really made me unhappy over the last couple of years. I haven't been using them recently. Old Republic, hey Mike.
Sorry, I was in line for cookies, everybody.
Oh,
You're forgiven
yep.
if you're sharing.
Yes, absolutely.
No, he's just gonna sit over there and eat 2 packages of cookies all by himself.
Does anybody want coffee? I've got cookies.
Yay.
Nice.
Take 6 and pass them on.
Oh,
Black
dang.
and white macaroons.
Oh my goodness.
And
Tis the season.
Everybody knows that all calories are free the month of December.
That's
So
exactly right.
Calories
Absolutely
are not
it is.
counted.
Oh my goodness. You're not gonna have any? You gonna be a good girl? Oh.
Have you guys used 210 home warranty? Are you familiar with that one?
I
Oh, that
have
was the one
not
that
used
Lloyd
210.
Fox always recommended.
Oh.
Yeah, I know there's a few agents that I know that have used them and they like them. I personally have not used 210, so I don't have any opinion one way or the other on it.
I've used
It's always going to be
I've
up
had-
to your. Always make sure that you give your client a choice of a
Yeah.
few of them. They can do their own research and recommend.
Who was
Like,
that?
to
Who was that
figure it
that
out.
Lisa Mayo was with?
Lisa was with First American.
Oh, was it First American?
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I don't use them anymore. Yeah, just saying.
Just, you know, she could leave us. So there
Oh,
might be someone new.
That's
oh, well,
probably not the worst news we've heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, those are good. Oh man, it tastes like a Mountain Bar.
oh my
Okay,
gosh.
where are the cookies from?
Too much treadmill.
Safeway, I believe, aren't they? Is that what they're
Yes,
from?
these are the Safeway. Safeway bakery.
But there's the black and white macaroons. Oh my gosh, they're good.
Wow.
Thank you,
It
Michael.
does taste just like a Mounds bar.
You're the best, thank you.
Wow. All right. So if the buyers don't want to get a home warranty plan and they decline, you need to have them check that box, and that's what those initials over there for. That'll protect us every time they come back to you and say, "You told me." Well, we offered you right there, and you said no, you didn't want to get one. So
That's why we always have our contract administrators looking at that. If those initials are missing, they're going to kick that back to you and you're going to get a purple box.
Yep. Maybe we should call this the no purple
The
box.
no purple box class.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because contract conversations holds a bad connotation for me over the discussion that I had with Mike last time about the guy that claimed he had a contract conversation, and that's why he sued me, because I got billed before he did, because he had a contract conversation. And I was like, well, dude, I had a contract conversation about wanting to buy the Eiffel Tower, but that didn't make it so. So I digress. All right, walkthroughs. The seller has to grant the buyer and the buyer's inspector reasonable access to do the walkthroughs. And this is referring to the walkthrough at the end and prior to closing, because this is to confirm that the seller has completed any repairs that they had agreed to do, and that the premises are in substantially the same condition as of the date of acceptance, i.e. they didn't switch the really nice washer and dryer out for, $50 ones that they found at a garage sale. They didn't remove the built-in refrigerator, that kind of thing. If the buyer doesn't conduct that walkthrough, buyer is releasing the seller and us for any liability for any defects that could have been discovered. And this is also on the final walkthrough addendum that we have. And if the buyer doesn't go, he has to sign that he wasn't going to go. And if he did go, he signs that everything was completed the way he expected it, and so on and so forth. The dog back here wanting cookies. Oh,
No, I'm just over here licking my lips and all those cookies. They're so good.
The boss man.
You didn't get any of these, though.
I think he wants those.
Just keep those back over there for right now. Maybe a little later.
They're good with coffee.
oh
Mhm.
my God.
Yeah.
This is so good. You guys that are at home are missing out on the cookies. I'm just saying.
Clearly, because it's most of the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, the conversation always shifts back to the cookies. You know, that's how good they are.
I'm glad you guys are enjoying them so much.
6M is one that we have problems with periodically because the seller's like, yeah, I want to shut all the utilities off. I don't want to pay for them anymore. And the sellers are obligated to keep the utilities on through the close of escrow so that we can do all our inspections, do our walkthroughs, and know that everything is functioning the way that they want. I've had sellers turn them off and I had to make them turn them back on again. So just prep your seller ahead of time that those utilities need to stay on.
Yep.
FERPTA. If the seller is a foreign person, and I've never understood this. Why does the obligation then be put upon the buyer if the seller's a foreign entity to withhold the federal? And I understand that title does it, but why does this have the buyer withholding the federal income tax?
So we mentioned that in a previous section.
Did we? Okay.
And the reason is because the IRS only knows
Oh,
the social
that's right.
security number of the buyer.
Yeah.
Or
That's right. You said
another
that.
entity.
That's the person they can keep track
Mhm.
of. That's the person they can attach to. So it has to attach to them.
So a seller
That's
can make a claim or file for their taxes in the next year, and they use the social security number of the buyer to claim their tax. If they're not owing all the tax, that's the only way they can use it. Because until you had a sale, you will not have an EIN or taxpayer
Yeah.
number. It's only after a sale that they consider that a taxable event, and now can give you an EIN. So if you're a Canadian or a citizen of Mexico or China, and you've had two sales, the first one being the way you get your EIN, next time you can, when the title
Use that
company
EIN
says, do you
number.
have an EIN number? Here it is.
Hmm.
And you can sell your home and get the taxes, and your proceeds can go directly to you at the closing.
Right.
Does the fact that the buyer chooses the title company, does that have anything to do with it at all? Or?
Every single title company is an agent of the IRS when it comes to that. So it's federal law. We have to within, I think it's 10 days. I'm not an escrow officer, but within 10 days, we have to submit that 15% to the IRS.
So let me get this straight. So the seller is going to identify themselves during escrow as FERPTA.
It's on an IRS form that
It's-
they,
Yeah.
as part of their opening package.
And
say,
then,
yes, I'm a US citizen, no, I'm not.
and
our
then,
questions go beyond that.
and then the title company at closing is going to withhold it. So then don't have an EIN. So now they've got the buyer's information.
Yeah.
So the title company is then going to withhold 15% of the
That's right.
proceeds at closing. And then you said within so many ever days, the title company is going to send that money to the IRS.
Yes.
And then does the buyer get notification that that money went to the IRS?
The buyer knows prior to the closing why that money is going through to the IRS.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
It
what
has
if,
So it's
to
not
say-
like it costs the buyer extra money,
It costs them
Right.
nothing.
right? It's just they take a percentage of those proceeds and they hold them to the side.
right,
Yeah, and but your question as to why is it the responsibility of the buyer? And that goes back to that's the only person that they can attach to.
so Mike, what if the taxes turn out to be 20% and you only withheld 15? Are they going
We're
to come
only
after?
responsible for withholding 15. Keep in mind that entity, that seller, has no relationship with the federal government, with the tax, right?
Mhm.
So they'd be happy to get 15. And if they
Oh, I see.
owed, I mean, that's all we, I mean,
Oh.
if they
If-
don't have a relationship. They don't
Okay.
have an income
I got
other
you.
than the capital gains.
Right.
Okay.
So there's no real burden for the buyer.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
No,
not a,
it's
it's
a
not a
noti-
burden to the buyer. It's just
Yeah.
a notification to the buyer.
Well-
This whole thing is disclosures, so.
Yeah.
That's why that is a disclosure. And it's the buyer's, I guess, good policy, good standing with the IRS that makes that even possible for the seller. But,
Well, the line that I just don't like, it says if buyer fails to withhold, the buyer may be held liable for the tax.
Right,
But
and that's
again,
why the title company, you got the
that's-
title company
but
do
the
it.
title company does it, handles
yeah,
all
it
that.
doesn't go through
Yeah.
to the buyer.
Okay.
That used to be the case. Now, there's a form, there's documentation. I will say, I think we talked about last time, if you have a seller who's a foreign person, but they work, live, whatever, here in America, and they are a little bit confused because they do pay taxes, income taxes, or they have something going on with an employer, make sure they get a tax person to talk to
Right,
before they say yes or no to the form that we give them.
Right.
Because we've had sellers say, no, I'm not a citizen, or yes, I'm a resident alien. And that can be two different things.
Yeah.
And if they have a relationship with the IRS, they may be able to just process it as usual. But if they're truly a visitor.
Yeah.
Then that's another issue where the IRS has no relationship with them.
Okay, cool.
And that's the most perfect talk I've done for 10 years.
it usually doesn't come into play.
Pat, cure notices.
Yeah, you want to do that now? Let's talk about cure notices.
That's the next section,
Cure
7.
period. Yep.
Remedies, cure period.
Remedies is cure period.
Okay, so when do we use one and why?
We use one anytime somebody is in breach of the contract, and we use it as a notification to the other party that you're in breach of contract.
Okay.
It is, I think, was it Mike? Was it you that called them love notes?
I call them love notes,
Yeah.
because you are working with that seller and buyer.
Yep.
You're not gonna blow them up or tell them they're bad.
Nope.
All you're doing is reminding them.
Yep. And that's really what it is. And too many agents take it personally when they
Mhm.
receive a
Take
cure
offense.
notice. And it's not offensive. It's not deemed to be, you're not doing your job. It's just a notification saying, hey, something is not right. We're not in compliance somewhere. And this is a notification. It's not a notification to cancel. That's not what it is. It's a notification that we're out of compliance and we need to get back in compliance. Notify your client that we need to get back in compliance. Or it gives my client the opportunity to cancel if that's the case. So it shouldn't ever be deemed as a negative thing. It should never be deemed as a threat or any kind of an offensive piece of paper. It's just simply a notification. Hey, we need to get back in compliance. That's all it is.
So in other words, when you send one, you shouldn't say, or if somebody is potentially in breach, you shouldn't say to the other agent, if you don't get this done, I'm going to cure you. You shouldn't frame it in
No.
that
No,
in that respect.
no, it shouldn't be. And I wish that more agents were of the understanding of what a cure notice actually is, and that they did not take them so personally. But it's unfortunately there are a lot of egos in the real estate business, and people's egos get bruised when you tell them that they are not complying, but something is not right with the contract.
Give us an example of something that somebody could not have done that would cause them to
Let's
be.
just say that 5 days after you have written a purchase contract, you have not received an insurance claims form. You're now in breach of the contract if you're the seller, because you agreed you were going to supply an insurance claims form. So if you don't supply that, you're now in breach. So at that point, the buyer's agent could issue a cure notice saying, hey, seller, you need to get us an insurance claims report.
But to your point, that's not a threat, it's
No.
just a notice.
Yeah, it's a notice to say, hey, we're out of compliance. We need to get back in compliance here. Have a conversation with your client and let's get things settled. Let's get back on track.
But actually, is the seller and the buyer agent call each other and just say, hey, I need this,
Yes.
instead of doing this?
Yes.
A lot of times that's what happens is they call and have a conversation. Unfortunately, what happens sometimes is you call and have a conversation and say, hey, I need this insurance claims form. And the seller's agent says, oh, yeah, we've got that. We've ordered it. It's on its way in. Okay, great. And then you drop it and you don't think about it anymore. So a week later, you're like, I still haven't gotten that insurance claims form. Well,
No.
now if you had actually sent them the cure notice, you have a potential threat on your part to say, hey, we asked for this 3 days or 5 days or 7 days ago. We still don't have it. Just we're not threatening to cancel, but just know that we are now at a point where my client could actually cancel contract if they want to.
So it's protecting our client.
That's exactly what a cure notice is. It protects your client's interests. It's a love note to the other side to get back in compliance, but it protects your client, because if you do not issue the cure notice, you're not doing your client any favors, because then if something happens where you do need to cancel, let's just say that we get towards closing and they haven't gotten the CD has not been issued to
All the loan
the
docs
buyer's
have
agent.
not.
All the loan docs have not been turned into title yet. Your seller now knows at that point, we've got a problem. We're probably going to end up, this thing's going to probably blow up.
And at the same time, you're getting offers from other people to buy
Correct.
the house.
Correct.
And you can't go ahead with your movement to cancel until you've given them this.
Right.
So now you get to the 11th hour, they still haven't performed, you haven't sent this, now you got to send it, now you got to wait 3 more days before you can cancel.
And that's what a lot of agents miss out on, is they don't cure for curable things like loan docs not being at title, or this anything really in here that could breach. I mean, you actually need to pay attention to those things, because when you get down to the 11th hour and you're like, well, it doesn't look like we're going to close, my seller's going to want to cancel tomorrow after 5 p.m. if we can't close at that time. Well, have you issued a cure notice? No.
And you don't
Well,
even-
you have no rights to cancel anything yet. You've got to issue a cure notice. Now your seller's going to have to wait 3 more days before they can cancel this contract, get out and go on with the next one.
and the
So
other
every
thing,
day costs money.
You're waiting, and the buyer may be very serious about buying this, but they may have problems with the lender.
Yep.
Or other issues. And now you can negotiate a little bit beyond the original contract if you need to or can,
Right.
just based on that, hey, we need another week or whatever
Yep.
we need. So it's not just in limbo.
And not curing. Breach of fiduciary duty.
Yes, it actually could. Can not curing be considered a breach of your fiduciary duties? Yes, it actually could. So your client very well could at that point have a claim to be able to file a complaint against you because you did not do your job.
Especially if earnest money's on the table and.
Yeah. Yeah, and every day costs money for a seller that they're holding the property. So yeah, if you fail to cure them, if you fail to protect your client's interests, yeah. Now, on the other hand, if you fill out a cure notice and you give it to your seller and your seller sits on it for 2 or 3 days, or your client sits on it for 2 or 3 days, and then they're mad because they can't cancel, it's like, well, you got to help me. If you're not going to sign the cure notice so that I can issue it, it's not going to do any good. And if you notice, if you guys have the cure notice, if you notice on there is nowhere on this form for the receiving party to say, hey, I got it. There is no line for the seller or for the receiving party to say, yep, received it, we've got it. Doesn't matter. You've issued the cure notice, and when you issue your cure notice, you're sending it via email. And if you send it out of SkySlope, again, now you've got that track to be able to show that, hey, I sent it at this point.
This is kind of a sidelight, but it brings up a good point. Lots of agents have their business card and they have an email, it's a Gmail account or whatever. They have a brokerage email. Whatever's on the contract is your delivery.
Correct.
So that agent has on the contract a different email address. That's the one you need to deliver.
That's a great point, Mike.
great
So
point, Mike.
that's
Wow.
one thing that you guys want to definitely remember is when you're filling out SkySlope or information in SkySlope, don't use the email address that they emailed it to you from as their email address. Make sure you're looking at that back page of the contract, and whatever email address they put in that line is what you use. Now, if they have not filled that out, like some agents don't do, some agents don't fill out all of their information on page 10 of the contract. That's again why you get a purple box. all that information is pertinent information for reasons. So that's why we have to have all of that information on page 10 done.
Well, and that populates from the listing agent's information populates when you do the MLS Connect, it
Yep.
populates in there. So they better have their correct one in MLS that they
Yeah.
want their
Yeah,
information to
For
go.
your benefit, if that's the only one that you have, then that's the one you focus on. 'Cause
Right.
Yeah.
Long term, that judge says, well, how did you deliver? And you're like, that's the only one I have.
Yeah, we delivered it via the email address that was on the purchase
I don't know
contract,
what
which
their
is what they
website has.
provided us.
That's a great point, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. See, there we go.
Yeah.
We got another tidbit that we learned about the
Mhm.
purchase contract. That's
Yep.
one of those things that you just, oh yeah, that's right. I didn't even think about that.
See, that's what's so awesome about this is that we can all learn new stuff every day.
Mhm.
It's really cool. That next paragraph is about what actually happens when there is a breach. You guys want to review that just a little bit? The non-breaching party may cancel the contract and or proceed against the breaching party in any claim or remedy that the non-breaching party may have in law and equity. I hate all this legalese, just so you know. Subject to the alternative dispute resolution obligations that are set forth herein, which is the next paragraph down. And so when we talk about in the seller, affixing actual damages is difficult. So everybody's going to agree that the earnest money will be deemed a reasonable estimate of damages. And the seller may, at the seller's option, accept the earnest money as the seller's sole right to damages. And in the event of a buyer's breach arising from the buyer's failure to deliver the notice required or buyer's inability to obtain loan approval due to the waiver of the appraisal contingency, pursuant to section 2L, seller shall exercise this option and accept the earnest money as, again, seller's sole right to damages. An unfulfilled loan contingency is not a breach of contract. So if after good faith effort and everything, they can't get their loan, that's not a breach. It's just that they didn't qualify and they didn't get the loan. The parties agree that the failure of any party to comply with the terms and conditions of section 1D to allow close of escrow to occur on the close of escrow date, if not cured after a cure notice is delivered pursuant to section 7A, will constitute a material breach of this contract, rendering the contract subject to cancellation.
Let's back up into this paragraph just a little bit. And
Yes,
when you
please.
go up into blah, 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 into the alternative dispute resolution, blah, blah, blah. So because it's difficult to affix actual damages, the earnest money is deemed to be a reasonable estimate of damages, and seller may accept the earnest money, may accept earnest money as their sole right to damages.
Doesn't say that.
What happens? Do you have to have earnest money to open a contract? Do you have to have?
No.
No.
So
You do not have to have any earnest money to have a purchase contract and accept a purchase contract. You could have zero as earnest money in there. But this is why it's important to have earnest money. It's important to negotiate earnest money. And it's important as a buyer's agent to know that what you put down as earnest money could very well be what gets taken as damages and get taken away. So if you put a hefty earnest deposit down, that could be in danger if your client breaches contract. So it's always important to you want to put enough down to show, yes, we're very interested, but not so much that it puts your client in danger and puts your client in a harm's way if they lose it.
have a client that says, now, is this check going to get deposited
Oh.
or withdrawn from my bank? Then have a little concern, because that
Yeah.
means that might be the last cash
Yeah.
they have,
Mhm.
and it will get deposited.
Absolutely, yeah. That check is not held. It's not held at the title company.
It's not paperclip.
It's
Yeah.
cashed at the title.
Deposited
It's
in
deposited into their account
And
and it's
it's-
held in escrow.
It's literally earnest money telling the seller this buyer is going forward
Right.
Yeah.
with that amount of money.
Right.
And the other thing about that too, I mean, in my opinion, the contract is heavily, heavily weighted for the buyer. The buyer's got umpteen things in here that if the seller doesn't perform in time or deliver what they're supposed to deliver, or the inspections or whatever, the buyer can get out of the contract. However, we need to let the buyers know that yes, there is a way that you can lose your earnest money, and that's if you go into breach of the contract. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do on your end of it. So there is a risk of losing earnest money. Buyers need to be aware that if they step up and create a breach, then they could lose their earnest money.
So just as a, I'm sure we covered this back in the first day that we did this, but what is typically, is there a percentage that is considered good for earnest money or?
Officially,
Yeah.
no. Unofficially, 1%. That's typically, it's 1%-ish, but officially, no, there is no dollar amount.
Yeah.
But if you polled agents, they would say typically, yeah, it's like 1% of purchase price, roughly. Usually it's, if you have a purchase price of, 489,750, it's not going to be 4,000 or yeah, they'll round it to 5,000 or they'll round it down to 4,000.
All right, alternative dispute resolution. So as a part of our contract, we agree that we're not going to immediately go to litigation. We're going to start with mediation. So we're going to mediate any dispute or claim arising out of or relating to the contract in accordance with the Realtors Dispute Resolution System. I've been through this process one time in 45 years.
Do you want to do it again? Was it a lot of fun?
It was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But you know what? I got one of the best compliments of my life. So I presented to the attorney all the situation on our behalf. I had a whole binder created and everything. And so after I presented her my argument as to why we should get the earnest money, I represented the seller. I said, what do you think? And she said, what I think is you should stop what you're doing and you should go to law school and become a real estate attorney. That's what I think you should do. I was
Like, I'm too busy being an agent.
like, yeah, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do what you do because she was a real estate attorney. So, and that's kind of important to know who you pick for your mediator if you have to go through the process. There's a list of them of attorneys that will accept these mediation disputes, know who it is that you're picking if you have to go through this. So,
Ask you, we'll ask you.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll just come back to Carolyn. and
yeah,
say,
just come back to me and I'll say,
She's very expensive though, just so you know.
oh my gosh, the mediation cost will be split equally among the parties. If the mediation does not resolve the disputes or the claims, the unresolved disputes and claims shall be submitted for binding arbitration. Okay. Now, if it goes to binding arbitration, then the parties agree upon an arbitrator and they cooperate in the scheduling of the arbitration hearing. If the parties are unable to agree on an arbitrator, then the dispute will be submitted to the American Arbitration Association, AAA, in accordance with the AAA arbitration rules for the real estate industry.
This next line is the most ridiculous line in the purchase contract.
The decision of the arbitrator shall be final and non-appealable.
That may as well be written in invisible ink.
Nice try.
Yeah,
Good
because it is not final and unappealable. It's a nice word to say in there, but I can guarantee you that if somebody isn't happy, they're not going to
They're
stop
not
there.
gonna- Oh my gosh.
It might detour a few people from saying, "Oh, I can't appeal." Oh,
You're like,
okay.
no, you can't. Sorry, it says right there. It says right there. Judgment of the award rendered by the arbitrator may be entered into any court of competent jurisdiction. Notwithstanding the foregoing, either party may opt out of binding arbitration within 30 days after the conclusion of the mediation conference by notice to the other side, and in such event, either party shall then have the right to resort to court action.
So you've got 30 days.
Yeah.
It's binding and non-appealable.
Non-appealable.
If it's after 30 days. 30 days, you can still do it. After 30 days, it's binding and non-appealable.
But just FYI, you don't ever want it to go that
Mhm.
far. You just don't ever want.
I can guarantee you that Charlie, and we've had, fortunately, we haven't had a lot of them. We had a few cases where we've had to go through this.
Yeah.
And Charlie will always, and our attorney will always recommend you settle.
Yeah.
Settle before it goes to court. Because if it goes to court, it's going to cost you a lot more money than probably what it's going to cost to settle out of here. Even if we're right, sometimes it's better to settle and just be done, cut your losses and go on with life and just move on down the road.
And Charlie is the absolute voice of reason when it comes to this, because you can dig your heels in and say, I want to fight. I want to take it to the mat. I want to be done with it. But, I was in a fight over $50,000 earnest money that we should have been entitled to. And it went on and it went on. And then finally, Charlie called me one day and he said, they've offered to settle. And I said, how much? And he said, $20,000. And I said, that's just really wrong. It should at least be half. Go back at half. So he calls me back 20 minutes later and he says, how much longer do you want to live with this? He goes, would you rather just kind of like have this go away and be done with it? Or would you rather just take the $20,000?
Do you want to be right or do you want
Do you want to be right or do you just want to be done? Right. Yeah. So,
Kind of like getting in an argument with your wife. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Sometimes it's just better to be done.
yeah, it's just better to be
I've never
done.
heard of
That's
such
right.
an argument with this.
I've
You
never
know, it's-
won one, so I can't tell you how that works.
Told never to try.
Yeah.
Yep. So there you go. So I can speak to personal experience on this one when I say, you know what, listen to Charlie. Our corporate attorney is amazing. These guys here have our back to the nth degree, but just listen to them and trust them because they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I'll say, we get a lot of buyer and sellers that are kind of complaining to us. Oh, my agent wouldn't go to bat for me on this one. Tell them about these paragraphs first before, because they're gonna have issues with the other party, the buyer with the seller and seller with the buyer. Let them know that there's some, first of all, the earnest money is kind of money they can count on. But, if they're really in a pickle, you're gonna help them get through this resolution.
Yep.
Yeah, this is my least favorite part of the whole contract right here.
Exclusions.
Oh, no, I just meant the under remedies
yeah,
because it's, the rest of it is written in really clear, plain to understand, easy
Yeah.
to understand language. And this is the most legalese that's in the entire entire document.
Like you said, every paragraph is because of a court case.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no question about that. Exclusions from ADR. Any action brought in the small claims division up to 3,500, so long as the matter is not thereafter transferred or removed from the small claims division, or 2, judicial or non-judicial foreclosure or other action proceeding to enforce a deed of trust, mortgage, or agreement for sale, or 3, an unlawful entry or detainer action. Number 4, the filing or enforcement of a mechanic's lien, or number 5, any matter that is within the jurisdiction of a probate court. Further, the filing of a judicial action to enable the recording of a notice of pending action, a lis pendens, my favorite,
Love that word.
or order of attachment, receivership, injunction, or other provisional remedies shall not constitute a waiver of the obligation to submit the claim to ADR, nor shall any action constitute a breach of the duty to mediate or arbitrate. So what does that all say? It says that those specific matters that we just talked about are excluded from the alternative dispute resolution. And the filing of a, notice of the lis pendens, etc. So just talks about what you have to do if any of these other random situations come up. Todd, anything else
Nope.
on that one?
I was just kind of looking back through it again just to see if
Yeah.
there's anything else that I wanted to jump in on. But
Yeah.
I
I
won't
would say in
take
your
this.
whole career, you're probably not going to see more than a couple of those for
If-
your sellers.
If you're
Mhm.
highly unfortunate.
If you're highly
Yeah,
unfortunate.
yeah,
But you should investigate the property as much as you can, like the taxes and all that ahead of time when you list the house.
Mhm.
Because those will be issues where if you have property that's under foreclosure or ready for foreclosure,
Mhm.
or court judgment or bankruptcy or whatever, that cannot be sold to the buyer right away. And if the buyer's expecting to get that house, in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, then you could end up in court no matter what.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so just search that out ahead of time if you can.
And
It's always
this,
good to have a good title person that you can just say, hey, this is a property that I'm thinking of listing. Can you pull it up and see if you see anything there that I need to be aware of before we go ahead and put this on the market? And then the title person can usually take a quick look at the title report and go, yep, there's something we need to look for, or yep, everything's clear. Everything looks pretty good.
For this office only, in both my Scottsdale office and here, if we need to, we can pull a commitment. So before you have a contract, give me an address and an owner's name, and we will research it.
Yep.
It'll be available, so you can say, work has already started on this property with First American Title, but
Yep.
we will have documentation that tells you what's going on, if
And-
there's something going on.
and this again goes back to when we're choosing our title officer, who we want to have, who we want to use. And it's also imperative that you understand how to read the title commitment when it comes through. And if you don't understand it, you need to check in with your title officer and say, what does this one right here mean?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Your title officers are just invaluable to helping you get the transaction completed.
And I can translate from time to time, but they're the best. Your escrow staff at our office is the person to call.
Yep.
If you don't understand anything, even if it's another company.
Real quick, I had a deal where it was, there was solar panels on it.
Yep.
And I'll talk to the title rep because, the seller agreed to pay the balance of the system at close of escrow. So when I was looking at the Alta statement, there wasn't it wasn't paid off. So I immediately called the title rep and the lady, we got it resolved, right? But the title rep was saying some solar companies don't file that as a lien for whatever reason.
Mhm.
I forgot what the term is.
Oh.
So yeah, I mean, sometimes, title will do their very, very best, but they only see what's on paper, right? So like, I didn't know that, to me, it makes sense that the solar company would want to lien it.
You would think, yeah.
But they
you
didn't,
want
right? It
something
would have
that
the
they're
balance,
gonna
it was
get
like
paid.
40 grand or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
But the logic that the title rep said is, they didn't have, they didn't file the paperwork, right? To place it on the lien.
Well, the good news is when your client gets the property, no matter
Like
who the
you
title
with the
company
damn
is,
bacon.
that's title insurance. And one of the things it provides is things that were discovered during the title process. So they are accountable for that. Even now, money's.
I'm just never going to be thin.
They
I'm just
pay it, whether it was worth it or not, but that's something that
But I'll
was
be happy.
a title issue that,
That's the purpose of it.
that's the purpose of the insurance.
Is there a deductible that a seller would pay to file a claim on their title policy?
There is a deductible usually that, and I couldn't even tell you what that number is.
There's cost.
The deductible is kind of like when you have a home warranty claim. You have $60 home warranty claim, they pay for whatever, even if it's, $10,000, but it's based on the sale price of the property. So it goes up to that, but there is a deductible.
Yeah, and just FYI, you don't want a title company that's going to tell you, get a lawyer, good luck. So I'm just saying.
Your title insurance covers as long as you own the home. It's not like 1 year or something. As long as you own it. Okay. The current policy, which we did in section 3, escalates based on the value. So even if you have it today, as the house goes up in value, that policy holds.
All right, attorney's costs.
7E.
Yeah, the attorney's costs, the prevailing party. Out of any of this will be awarded their reasonable attorney's costs and fees, and that's, pretty standard.
The theme of that one is if you're gonna get a lawyer, get a good one, because if you lose, you're gonna pay for both sides.
Ouch.
And now in that process, just for clarity, you have E&O insurance
Yeah.
as a brokerage, so that I don't need to be told what that is, but everybody understands that there's a deductible to that insurance as well.
Yeah. You gotta have them. You gotta get some, Gary. Please make them go away. Take them.
Just take 'em with you.
Get them away from it.
Doesn't matter. I got it when I got them.
Holds over there.
All right, this page right here, page 8, it's all blank for you to add additional terms and conditions. Be very careful what you put in
Just
here.
because there's blank lines doesn't mean you need to fill them in.
You don't have to fill them up. It's okay to write the balance of this page intentionally left blank right there.
Or you can just take your pen and just write straight through it as
It's
well.
hard to do in transactions.
Or you can just leave it blank.
Yeah.
I most oftentimes just leave it blank. I don't do anything with it.
Yeah. But anyway, just be careful what you put in here and do your best not to contradict what is in the balance of the contract.
Yeah,
in
the verbiage of the
in
contract is there for a reason. It's
Yeah.
not there because it needs to be corrected.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
clarified.
Yeah.
I see that so often is people will go in and they will just rewrite what's already in the purchase contract. Why are you doing this? It's already in the contract. Why are you writing it again in page 8? Now there may be confusion
Mhm.
when you're trying to rewrite it to clarify it. Now you've caused confusion. Leave it alone. Contract is good the way it is, unless there's something specific that needs to be corrected or eliminated from the contract. Leave it alone.
And if you're ever in doubt, if there's something that you feel like you need to put in there, check with somebody.
What if I'm buying the house for myself or my brother or my uncle or my dad?
Needs to be disclosed, right?
Yep.
So if you are a buyer buying for your own account,
And what verbiage would you use?
all parties acknowledge that the buyer is a licensed real estate agent in the state of Arizona, representing themselves solely in this transaction.
Or buyer
The
has
buyer is a
buyers
related to.
or buyer or the buyer's agent is related to the buyer or something along those
Yeah,
lines.
buyer's agent is related to the buyer.
You just need to disclose anytime you're handling something for a close relative. Now, if it's your second cousin, you don't have to disclose that. You get down the line, it doesn't. Even if it's your single cousin, you don't have to disclose single cousin. But if it's your aunt, uncle, mom, dad, children, spouse.
But I like that little part that I tailed on there. I don't know if y'all caught it. Representing myself solely in this transaction. I want it to be crystal clear that I'm not representing anybody else. I don't want any seller to come back to me and say, "Oh, but you're an agent. You should have been looking out for me." Nope, I'm representing myself solely in here. Yeah.
That's a good line.
So, all right. So again, if there's something that you need to add in there, type out a draft of it, run it by Todd, run it by somebody. Just make sure, because Stephanie and I do this all the time. She'll write something, send it to me. I write something, send it to her, and we both confer on it till we get it exactly the way that we want. Because it may sound perfectly reasonable to you the way you put it in there, but somebody else. And if it comes to a jury, I can just tell you, if it comes to a jury, it's going to say, what would a reasonable person interpret this to mean? So hand it to a few other reasonable persons, let them see how they interpret it, and make sure that you've got it clear before you put it into this contract.
Good advice.
All right, guys. And that's because I had I had a jury of my reasonable peers in the lawsuit that I went to. So anyway, wasn't my fault. Okay, page 8. What if the house burns down while it's in escrow? What happens? Who's the
Contract's canceled. If
who's
it
the
burns
loss?
down,
Well,
contract's canceled.
If they can
I
get it
just
rebuilt
made
in a couple of weeks, we're good.
I just made some funny notes to ask you guys when we were sitting here talking about it. And look, now I've got cookies all over my hand.
If the house is blue, it's still a good contract.
Have to paint it a different blue
It's
with
the wrong
everything.
blue now.
Yep.
All right. So like we've talked about repeatedly, if there's ever a question that you have about something that comes up during an escrow, chances are 99.9% that the answer will be in here. So risk of loss. If there's any loss or damage to the premises between the date that you go under contract and close of escrow or possession, fire, vandalism, flood, earthquake, act of God, the risk of loss is on the seller. Obviously, it's still their home until closing takes place, provided if the cost of repairing such damage or loss would exceed 10% of the purchase price. So let's say your whole house gets, or your whole roof gets ripped off in a tornado and it's going to cost more than 10%, the seller or the buyer can cancel the contract in that case. Okay.
May elect to cancel
May
the
elect.
contract. It's, let's just say that happens. Let's say you're under contract with the house. It's a $500,000 contract on a house. The tornado comes through and rips the roof off of the house, and it's going to end up costing $52,000 to replace everything on the house. That's over 10% of the price. So it's cancelable at that point. Cancelable. Doesn't mean it's going to automatically cancel. As the buyer, maybe you're like, hey, you know, if you'll fork out the 50 grand to put the roof on, I'll put the extra couple grand in, whatever it takes.
I kind of like the location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm willing. I was going to scrape the house anyway. I don't really care. So, you know, if that's the case, you may be like, go, I don't care. Don't make any repairs. Don't do anything. That's fine. I'm willing to go on with the contract. So the buyer can continue to carry on. But here's kind of the caveat to that. What if the seller, now tornado comes through, rips the roof off, there's $52,000 damage with the house. Seller goes, maybe I'll put this back on the market again and see if I can get more money out of it. He can cancel the contract, and
Yeah.
he doesn't have to have the buyer's permission to do so.
Because now it's got a brand new roof and he might be able to get more money for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
$50,000 brand new roof.
Yep.
Yeah. Because it was a 40-year-old roof before the tornado came along.
So that kind of the key words in there is they may elect to cancel the contract, but it can be either party. It can be done by either party without the okay of the other party at that point. They don't have a say.
Yeah, so that estimate of 10%, just a question, would be like, what makes it validated, right? Like, would it be the insurance company, like
I would think, yeah, either insurance company or you would have to have some sort of repair receipt from a licensed contractor to say what it would cost to return it to its original form. Yeah.
And it's about the 10% of the purchase.
10%
contract.
of the contract price.
That's the
Yep.
contract price. Yep. Yep. This is just giving us different permissions that, that we already have, that when the transaction is recorded, it's a matter of public record. So, but this is restating the obvious. The buyer and seller grant the broker's permission to advise the public of this contract. Well, we're going to advise the public when it's recorded because it's now in the public record. So there's that. This
And in
also
the
would
MLS, it allows
pertain
us to have the MLS to put the
yeah.
contract price, the sales price
to
in
the
the MLS.
MLS as well.
I want to
Yeah.
back up for just a second, back
Oh,
up to
okay.
that risk of loss again.
Oh, okay.
Just to throw another situation in there. Let's say you're under contract with a house, $500,000. During your inspection period, you say, roof's bad, needs a new roof. We want a $15,000 credit for the roof. Seller's like, all right, we'll give you a $15,000 credit for the roof. But, we can't take $15,000 in credit on the buyer side. We're going to reduce the purchase price $15,000. So you reduce your contract price now down to $485. Now a tornado comes in and rips the roof off. Then it does $50,000 worth of damage or $49,000 worth of damage. Where are you at?
Well, purchase price now 485, so that's still exceeded.
That's your purchase price. Yeah. So if you've reduced purchase price, if you've done something to reduce the purchase price, that's why it's key that says purchase price in it. That's what your current contract price is. I like to throw wrinkles in.
Oh,
Even though that's literally all the tornadoes that have happened for the last 10 years.
Well, with the amount of tornadoes that we've seen happen in the last 2 weeks in the United States, I
Yes.
don't discount them anywhere anymore.
I
Crazy.
once showed a
Especially
home.
with the snowfall.
I once showed a home up north in the mountains, and the house was nearly brand new, but then the people said they'd been living there for 15 years. The house had been struck by lightning and burned to the ground.
Yeah.
And the sellers rebuilt the house in the same exact location. And then guess what they did? They put a lightning rod thing, on the
Mhm.
top of the house. And so my seller's looking at it and he goes, wait a minute, are you kidding me? He goes, the house got struck by lightning right here because it was on the mountaintop and it burned to the ground and they're fixing it by putting a lightning rod. And you know, that old adage about does lightning strike twice? And he declined to buy the house, which I can't really blame him.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think, lightning rods do work, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
there's purpose in it.
Yeah, we actually, when we bought our house in Charleston, we had looked at this other house and we were this close to putting an offer on it, like the same week we put an offer on the one we actually got. And right after the people moved in, they were there for like 2 months. They got struck by lightning and they were out of it for months and months when all the repairs were done.
it's crazy.
Somebody was looking out for you.
Yeah, yep, there you go. Absolutely.
All right, Arizona law.
Time is it's ruled by Arizona law. Duh. Okay, that's where we're at.
Doesn't matter where the buyer where the buyer lives or where the seller is currently living. If it's, you know, if he's out of the state, doesn't matter.
Property is here,
Governed by Arizona.
based on here. Yeah. Time is of the essence. Use this when you need it. The parties acknowledge that time is of the essence in the performance of the obligations described herein. So you can always go back to this line and say, yeah, but it says right here, time is of the essence. If we say you got to do it in 3 days, you got to do it in 3 days because this is what it says. So
I
you-
just recently, I saw something on the Facebook agents page today that they were talking about a case where a buyer got a loan decline. And 14 days later, 3 days before close of escrow, they notified the seller that they got their loan declined. And there was some argument in there as to whether or not the seller could actually capture the earnest money. It's like, well, you know, they've been declined. All they have to do is just have the seller send a decline notice over. Even if you cure them, they're going to send a decline notice over and they can cancel and get their earnest money back. And somebody else was pointing out, no, because time is of the essence. They did not follow that. They also, if you look back in the contract, or you look back at the lending piece of it, where it says that any material thing that happens by the buyer that says that you're not going to be able to close the loan, anything has to be disclosed immediately. It doesn't say you can wait 14 days right before close of escrow and then disclose it. So at that point, there were several people that came back and said, oh, no, you should be fighting for earnest money on that one.
Yeah,
So
but the
that's,
contract says that, when we hear that no later than 3 days, in terms of a loan denial.
right.
Delivered notice of inability to obtain a loan approval no later than 3 days COE.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, there's kind of gray area. If you found out 2 weeks ago, but really, I mean, the way this reads.
Yeah, the way that
3
reads,
days
but if
before
you
the
go
escrow.
back, if you look
Yeah.
back in that contract, though, it says anytime there is a change or anything that happens that is deemed to be material that you're not going to be able to close, any changes need to be disclosed right away.
So our title company does look at that concept of diligent effort to get the loan approved.
Yeah.
And if they've already got a loan denial 2 weeks ago, they're not diligently trying to get a further loan from another company or
Right.
anything like that, then we're gonna give the money to the seller.
Yeah, they needed to disclose that back when they
Yeah.
found out. I mean, just because you got a loan denial doesn't mean that's the deal's not dead at that point. I can't count how many times we've had a loan denial, something has fallen apart with one lender, and you turn around and get it to another lender, and they can close the deal. So just because you have a loan denial doesn't mean the loan's dead, and it doesn't mean the seller can cancel. It doesn't mean anything other than the fact that you've delivered your notice. And now you, as the buyer, have the opportunity to cancel if you want to. I mean, you can get out of it and say, yeah, you know what, we're just not going to be able to get the loan.
So let's
But
play.
you still have to notify.
So let's play devil's advocate here for a moment. So you're going along, your buyer's going along, they get a denial, and you want to go to another lender. Is there a time frame in which you have to get to the other lender? Do you have to notify the seller that you got one denial, but you're proceeding with another lender? What's the time frame on that?
Well,
What
I
does
think
that look like?
at that point, there really isn't a time frame, so to speak, as there is an obligation to disclose what's going on.
Mhm.
So if you're going to another lender, you'll know within a couple of days whether or not that other lender is going to be able to make the deal happen, or you'll have a good idea. And you just need to keep communication open with the other side to make sure they know where you're at. And in the case where, with what Christian's got going on
Mhm.
right now,
Exactly.
they had
Yeah.
to extend out 10 days. They had to ask for an extension for 10 days because they weren't going to be able to get closed in the time that they needed to. So you disclose, hey, we're having a problem. We're working on getting a situation taken care of. Just wanted to make sure you're aware. So you keep everybody in the know. And then when he needed to, he filled out an addendum and said, hey, we're going to need to extend the close of escrow, and sent it over to the seller. The seller came back to him and said, yeah, we'll do that, but we want some assurance that you're going to close. So we want your earnest money to go non-refundable.
And you need to expect that that's something like that's gonna happen.
You should expect that you're going to have to, as a buyer, you're going to have to give
Or
up something.
chips.
You're going to have to do something. You're either going to have to put some more money in escrow or in as an earnest money, or some kind of an assurance that you're going to be able to get it done. Hopefully your lender would be willing to call up the selling party and say, hey, listen, we're good to go. We just got to get it through underwriting. We've already got everything pre-done on it. We're going to be able to close. We're going to close on that date. We absolutely will be able to close that date. If they can give some assurance, that sometimes that will be enough for the seller. But most oftentimes they're going to ask for some skin. They want some of
If
this.
the first is refused, the vendor refused, and we say, we'll tell the other party.
Yep.
Or they are not entitled to ask for more money or.
Something.
Yeah,
Something.
yeah. Or
A
either that or the same terms of the contract will still hold into play. And it's at that point, 3 days before close of escrow, buyer's not going to be able to perform. At that point, then you're going to have to cure them, and then at close of escrow date, your seller could cancel if that's what they wanted to do. But at that point, nobody really wants it out unless the seller has another offer that they think they're going to get better terms or something. The seller's going to want to continue down the road and give them a little bit of extra time. So as the buyer's agent, yeah, it's good faith to give them something, but it's not always necessary. Sometimes it's just, hey, we just need a few more days. Just give us a few more days. Sign the addendum and get it back to us. We're not jerking you around. We just need to have a couple more days to get it done.
These loan denials are very specific because of the federal government's changing the lender's responsibilities. So you need to know what that says, why that person is not qualified for their loan.
Right.
too. It may never work with no matter what other lenders involved, but it
Right.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't bury your head in the sand for that.
No.
Yeah.
All right, we're at
It's
2 o'clock. So
already.
what do we got here? Where are we at? We
There's
are,
compensation.
we just got through time was of the essence, so we're on compensation.
Compensation. Yep.
How much do we have? We have this page left, and that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
Should we just finish it up next week?
Next
Or do
week's
you wanna-
Christmas Eve.
That's Christmas Eve.
Next week
so-
is Christmas
Then it's
Eve, so
New
when
Year's
we
Eve.
don't
New
do
Year's
this
Eve.
now, we're gonna wait 2 more weeks. Let's continue on and finish
3
this up. We can finish this off, yeah.
Okay.
It will be January before we finish it. We don't do it today.
Yeah.
So let's finish it up today.
All right, so compensation, everybody's acknowledging that the brokers are compensated under a separate written agreement, which would be the listing agreement, okay? This is why we never deal with commission inside the body of the contract, because the compensation is on a separate distinct contract from this contract. If you've got a buyer, exclusive buyer representation agreement, the buyer is going to pay the commission. That's going to be a document that's going to go to the title company as well. So the title company knows where and how you're getting paid from. Commissions payable for sale, leasing, management, et cetera, are not set by any board or association. So you always want to be careful about this. If Charlie got together with HomeSmart and said, hey, let's only charge 6%, and HomeSmart said, okay, that's collusion and they can't do that. And that's price fixing. Okay. Charlie for Berkshire can say, we are a 6% office and that's just what we charge. And if you want to do business with us, that's what we charge. Charlie can do that for his company. Charlie can't get together with Realty Executives, HomeSmart, or whomever and say, hey, let's just set it at this. And so the sellers, they're going to pay this regardless. Okay.
Some brokers charging $90.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
stay in business long.
No,
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that.
and the market's changed.
A perfect example of this. So I just wrote an offer on a property that was expired. So before I sent the offer over, I called the listing agent, previous listing agent, because I knew they were friends with the seller. I said, I need an agreement in writing that you will still pay us compensation if we put this deal together. They got a one-party listing signed for my specific clients, acknowledging they would pay the commission. Now it's on a separate agreement. I'm covered. Because otherwise, if I'd have submitted the offer and the seller would go, great, I'll take this, and he signs it, and there's no document in place that says he's going to pay us, he's like, hey, thanks for the contract. Sweet. So just know that you're covered. When you're dealing
Better
with-
have a buyer broker agreement in that case.
Yeah, well, and my buyer.
Your buyer's not going to pay a dime.
My buyer refused to sign a buyer broker agreement, so I had to go to Plan B, which was, hey, get a
Get a one-party
exclusive
agreement.
sign. Yeah, one party agreement sign. So just know if you're dealing with off market, expired or canceled listings or whatever, you need to make sure that you're going to be paid. Okay.
And make sure you're going to get paid before you take your client to take a look at the house and write the contract, not once they see it.
Yeah.
You want that contract beforehand.
Exactly. Let's see. So counterparts, copies and counterparts. We all know that the buyer can sign this one and the seller can sign this one, and it constitutes one full contract. The only place where that's not allowed is on the lead-based paint. That cannot be signed in counterpart. Okay, that's the only one.
Do you understand what counterpart means? Counterpart means you've got buyer signing on one and seller signing on the other on the same document, but you've got two different one buyer signs one, seller signs one. That's counterpart. You can do that on a purchase contract. You can have a purchase contract, everything else, buyer sign one, seller sign one, that's all fine. That one,
Even different
you
buyers
cannot.
and different sellers.
Yes, yeah, you could have two buyers, different ones,
Yeah.
whatever, but
Yeah.
that form, everybody signs.
All of it, yeah. And lead-based paint, everybody has to sign that one, but that was my point. Buyer signs this one,
I
seller
was
signs
just
that
making sure people
all one
understood what
under what
counterpart
counterpart is.
Yeah.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Sometimes counterpart can be just like, what the heck is counterpart?
Yeah.
Does that mean I'm not here? What does that mean?
Yeah. That's
Is
funny.
it like sidekick?
These so these next ones are some of my favorites because this tells you specifically how you calculate the time frame and the days that we're referencing when we say we have a 10-day inspection. When does that start? When we say, okay, so when your Binzer is due and your Binzer is due today, is it due today by 5? Is it due today? When is it due? It's due by 11:59 p.m. If it's due today, you get all day today up to 11:59. And trust me, we've sent them at 11:45 at night because, trying to get the buyer's signature on those things. So days tells you how to calculate your time, when the day begins, when it ends. Time periods, this one's really critical because again, if your contract is signed today, when's your inspection start? Day 1 is tomorrow. This particular one, we always go through acts that must be performed 3 days prior to the close of escrow, i.e. loan documents getting to title or any such thing. It has to be 3 full days prior. So if your close of escrow is in Friday, when do your loan documents have to be to title? Because they have to be there 3 full days.
Monday.
Tuesday, Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday. So it's Tuesday.
No, it's not.
Must be the before Tuesday.
It's Monday at 11:59 p.m.
Before Tuesday.
Yes. But that's the common mistake is people
Yeah.
they subtract their days and they get to the third day and they're like, oh, it has to be that. No, it's 3 full days.
Full
So you've
days.
got to back yourself up one more. So I like that they actually put that in the contract.
Mhm.
If the close of escrow
Yeah.
is Friday, it must be done by 11:59 on Monday. It tells you your days.
Oh, it
So
says it
we-
right there,
we do
11:59 on
sign
Monday.
something.
It does.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, I love that they actually put that example.
Yeah,
in the
that
contract
example
so
in
that
there.
there is no gray area.
Well, because that's the
right there.
one that people always screw up. And what about so if your closing is on Monday, your close of escrow is supposed to be on Monday, and so it has to be 3 full days, and so you're still going to count Sunday.
That's Tuesday.
So it's going to be all.
Keep
It's going to be
in mind, some lenders consider Saturday a day for them to send things out, which is
Yeah.
kind of a pain because no
Right.
title company's there.
is
Right.
there to receive them, right? Yeah.
And then also know that I think lenders think of the close of escrow date you have on the contract as kind of like
A floating
best
day.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
where everybody else is a wedding day.
Yeah.
Their best guess. Well,
Yeah.
sometime in that month.
And this is when it's important when choosing a lender because there's lenders that believe fully that if they get the loan documents there at 9 a.m. on the day of closing, they've met their obligation. So, and those are lenders
Which is
that you
not
don't
helpful.
want to do
Yeah,
business
that's
with.
the lender that you use once.
Yeah, once.
Keep in mind, it's not because of they're not doing their job, it's because you look like crap.
Yes. Yeah, because who is the buyer going to blame? Who's the
Buyer's
seller
just-
going to blame? They're going to blame you,
Yes.
the agent.
Yeah.
They're not going to blame the
That's
lender.
right. We are the first line to take all the brunt of everything. This is the entire agreement. Another one of these things that goes out without saying, but again, it's no doubt due to litigation. So this addendum and any addendum or attachments, and that's why on page 1, you check all the boxes as to which addendums are made a part of the contract. I love this one. The failure to initial any page of the contract shall not affect the validity or terms of the contract. So if you miss one initial on it,
If you miss all the initials,
yeah. Yep. Can
it's all
only
valid. You signed it.
can only be modified by something in writing and signed by everybody. Subsequent offers. This is also on the listing contract now. So on the listing contract, it says, do you want to, once you accept an offer, do you want to see any backups? Do you want to not see any more backups? What do you want to do? And then this is restating it in here again. Buyer acknowledges that seller has the right to accept subsequent offers until the close of escrow. And seller understands that any subsequent offers accepted by the seller must be in a backup position contingent upon the cancellation of this one. So if your seller has on that listing agreement, check the box that they want to continue to receive offers. This is making the buyer acknowledge that that seller has the right to continue to receive those backup offers. All right. Any party who wishes to exercise the right of cancellation may cancel a contract by delivering notice stating the reason for cancellation to the other party or to the escrow company. Cancellation shall become effective immediately upon delivery of the cancellation notice.
Best practice, all parties,
All parties,
title and other agent.
everybody.
Yep.
Let everybody know what you're doing.
Yep.
This is what Mike was talking about. Unless otherwise provided, delivery of all notices or documentation required or permitted herein shall be in writing and deemed delivered and received when either A, hand delivered, sent by fax, who does that anymore?
Go get a fax.
Sent via electronic email if email addresses are provided herein, which they are, because your other agent's going to have this filled in on the other side as to what email address they're using. And Mike, that was a great point. Or sent by recognized overnight courier service and addressed to the buyer as indicated in the back page, or to seller as indicated in 3A. And whenever you're sending those kind of things, send them through SkySlope if you can. If you don't send them through SkySlope, you send them through your own. Request a read receipt. Hit the important button on it. Copy yourself on it so that you know that it went through and you've got documentation that you did it. This should be all of our favorite contract or paragraph release of the brokers. We are holding harmless the brokers for any responsibility or liability with financing, the condition, the square footage, the lot lines, the boundary, the value of the rent rolls, the environmental problems, sanitation systems, roof, wood infestation, building codes, governmental regulations, let's see.
All parties understand that the brokers do not provide advice on a property as an investment and are not qualified to provide financial, legal,
or tax advice
Yep.
on this. We are not CPAs. We are not investment advisors. We are not attorneys. We are real estate brokers.
But who are they going to sue?
Us.
They're going to sue you.
They're going to sue us.
They've initialed this line. They've supposedly read it and they've initialed it, but it's not going to stop.
I flip and read it out loud to them every
Yep.
time. So. Becomes a binding contract when acceptance is signed by the seller and a signed copy delivered in person, by mail, facsimile, or electronically, and received by the broker. Okay, by the broker. So if my seller accepts this and I send it back to the listing agent, that's deemed that the seller has received it, because it says right here that if the broker receives it, the broker named in the section receives it, then that's the deal. And then this is where you put for time for acceptance. Mountain Standard Time again. Buyer may withdraw this offer at any point prior to receipt of seller's signed acceptance. So if they get cold feet and they can back out, they can rescind their offer. This is where it's important as to who talks first. So if you're the listing agent and your seller just accepts it and you call the buyer's agent and you say, hey, how you doing? How's it going? And they, and that this is really old school. And the buyer's agent says, oh yeah, you know what? They canceled. Was acceptance communicated? No, it wasn't. So when you call, you say, hey, guess what? The seller accepted. So you don't give them a chance to talk and rescind the contract before you convey acceptance has happened.
Even at that, though, do you really want to do business with somebody who doesn't want it?
No, I got you. I did. You heard
But
me
yeah.
say to Todd, this is very old school. This
Yeah.
was before email.
Here's
This
a-
was before fax. This was when we had
Here's another
landlines
piece
only.
on that.
Okay.
If you notice, this says mountain time. What happens to us in the summertime?
What?
Are we on Pacific time?
We're on Mountain
We don't
Standard
switch.
Time.
We're on Mountain Standard Time. We are
Always.
still on Mountain
Yep.
time.
Always on Mountain
We're
Time.
always
Always,
on Mountain
always
time.
on Mountain Standard
regardless,
Time,
yeah,
yeah.
Yep.
Do it our way.
But it's still considered Mountain Standard Time. We're always on Mountain Standard Time. So regardless of what time of year it is, that's the time. It's not an hour earlier because we're, on California time. No.
Because we're not, no, California is on our time at that time of
Exactly.
the year. Yeah, we're not on theirs. They're on
We never
ours.
change.
Yeah. So,
That's 'cause
Anyway.
they're Pacific Daylight Time.
Yes.
yeah. So
Yep.
prior to fax machines, cell phones, and emails, you had to say, hey, the seller accepted really, really fast before the buyer could receive. Okay. All right. There you go. That's what happens when you're a dinosaur. This contract contains 10 pages exclusive of any of the addendas, so make sure that you have all 10 pages as well as any addenda, etc. Fill out all your information on the next page.
Check your boxes. Make sure your boxes are checked.
Boxes.
The
check.
appropriate box.
Yes.
What if we have, what if Carolyn and I each represent, one represents the buyer, one represents the seller? Then what boxes do we check?
Fire and
Both
seller.
buyer and seller.
Both buyer and seller.
Yeah.
Because it's the brokerage.
Because
It's the
why?
dual
It's the
agency at that
brokerage.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So make
And
sure that you're checking the appropriate boxes.
I argued about that for a while. However, it's
It's
the
the broker.
broker that has the
The
contract.
broker
is the
named in the section, not
bro-
the agent.
Yeah, not the
named in
agent, it's
section.
the broker. So if it's both within Berkshire, then both agents need to say both buyer and seller. Now, Todd may not be talking to my buyer and I'm certainly not talking to his seller, but nonetheless, it's Charlie that owns the whole thing. So
Yep.
it's both.
Even though Carolyn and I are both brokers,
Mhm.
we are
Yep.
not the broker of record.
You sure if you're gonna do a counter offer, you hit this little box down here.
What happens if I don't?
You're gonna get a red box.
No, what happens, let's say the buyer submits an offer and they submit this offer and the offer is for $500,000. And the seller signs the contract, does everything, you fill out a counter offer, the seller signs the counter offer that says, no, it's 525 is the purchase contract price.
And they forgot
And
to
they,
check
s-
the
and they
box.
don't check that box and they send everything back to the buyer. What happens?
The original contract. Right? Let's
get more opinions here. What do you think happens, Lisa?
Where are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm not
If you
sure.
check the box that says counter offer is attached, if you forget to check the box that says counter offer is attached, line 467. If you forget to check that box as the seller's agent, then you send a counter offer and this signed contract back to the buyer without checking that box. What happens?
Opinions?
Accept the
Anybody?
contract.
You're saying it's an accepted contract at the contract price. The counter offer doesn't matter. Okay,
They
Lisa?
can't make a counter offer, maybe? No. I'm not sure.
You're not sure? Okay. Gary?
I would say that there's no counter offer. Legally,
Gary says there's no legal counter offer. Patrick?
I'm reading the last 8 words. The
Mhm.
provisions of the
Right.
contract is controlling before anything
Mhm.
else.
That's
Yeah,
the
that's what
key.
I'm going off of.
Yes. So regardless of whether that box is checked or not, if the seller signs a counter offer
Mhm.
and it's sent back to the buyer, the counter offer is part of the contract. Now you're going to get dinged by Michelle. You're going to get a purple box by Michelle saying you didn't check that box. And you may even have the buyer's agent may come back and say, oh, no. We want this for 500. That's what we offered you. No, that's not the way it works. Charlie likes to call it a meeting of the minds. You do not have a meeting of the minds because the seller said 525. That's his thought. I don't care if the box is checked or not. That doesn't matter. It's like not initialing one of the pages.
Especially if
That's
you have
not-
an email that included a counter offer.
Yep,
Yeah.
That means that's not a meeting. of the minds.
Correct.
That's just-
Right.
yep. You've sent the counter. Now, if you just sent the offer back and you had the counter offer and then you sent the counter offer in another email, now you
Now
may
you got
have
a
a problem. because you didn't send everything back at once. If you send it separately, you may have a problem at that point.
And said, oh, okay, we got it.
Yeah.
I've had listing agents send me ones back where they not only checked the box, but they took the additional text that you can add in transaction desk and in big bold print added in here, counter offer attached. So it's in big bright letters that you can't miss, just to be on the safe side. And
Yeah.
they probably had a problem in the past. And so
Probably.
that's why they do that.
Yeah. Sean actually had that exact situation happen with, he had the buyer and they submitted an offer, and that situation happened with them. The seller came back with a counter, but they didn't check the box. And the buyer, who was an attorney, said, I want it for that price. They agreed to that price. And Charlie said, no, we're not doing that. No, you either accept the counter offer in, or we're not going forward with this contract. And the buyer was like, okay, they finally came back.
Nice
Conceded,
try.
yeah.
Honorable effort. Yeah.
Yep.
Yay.
So devil's advocate question here.
Yep.
On 810.
Yes.
Mhm.
So we have a client initialing that, saying that takes the initial letter, and they're saying, well, if you're not responsible for any of this, why am I paying?
Responsible for everything but that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like just about everything.
Well,
Your job is to market the property, and negotiate the contract that's
right.
written.
You're negotiating terms, that kind of stuff of the contract. That's really
Yeah.
what your expertise is.
This
You
may-
are not,
yeah.
you are not somebody who can do home inspections. You can't give financial advice on it. Those kind of things are
You're
just
not a
not in your,
contractor.
that's not in your spectrum.
Yeah.
That's not in your scope of expertise.
Yeah.
So that's why they're doing it.
You go, those fees there are a little light.
Mhm.
And you're
In fact, and I've seen a bazillion houses. And so, yes, I will point out things that I see, but I always provide a caveat. I'm not a contractor, but that looks a little sketchy. Okay.
Well,
You,
that's why I was trying to get at the point. I remember in class, a lot of conversations about drop the fee to keep them.
Yes.
right.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference there. You're not being held responsible for saying that there are, you shouldn't go through with this, or, but you should at that point. If you notice something, you are obligated to say something to your client. Hey, I noticed this is not quite right. I would seek further investigation if I were you. That's
Right.
what your obligation is. It's not to provide the professional opinion. It's just to provide, hey, in my opinion, I see this, but I'm not an expert, but I think you need to take a look at it. But if you neglect to do that, if you see it, if it's obvious and you see it and you don't say something, yeah, that's where you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 2 seconds on line 473. Okay. Other brokers hate to do this. We're in a situation where we get multiple offers. You're required to have your seller sign this rejection on the 15 offers that he's not taking and the one he is. These need to be signed. Okay.
It's
So
just an initial. It's a simple initial. You
it's-
throw it into SkySlope or back into the action desk, and you send it over to your client for a simple initial on there.
yeah.
That means they've seen the contract.
Yeah.
And that they are officially rejecting it. Otherwise, there is no guarantee that your contract was ever seen.
Yeah. And it's a pain in the butt
Your
because
system require that to be in the line. So
No, we don't. We recommend, but we don't require it.
but
But
it
we do
should be,
recommend it. It should be,
and we
yes.
had 46 offers on one listing, and Melissa did all 45 of them with the rejection on it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, just do the right
And
thing.
because when I get a rejected offer and the agent won't send me that, then you know what I do? I call the agent and say, did your seller even see my offer? Did they see it? Did you send me anything that says that they saw it? Because I can get really testy about it. I want to know that the seller saw it and physically rejected my offer so that I can say with some assurance to my client, yes, they saw it and your offer wasn't accepted. I'm sorry.
do you need the whole contract for them to sign it, or is it just that page?
That page.
It's
is
just
all it
that
is.
page for the rejection, but essentially it's
Yeah, that deems
saying,
that they've seen the offer.
Yeah.
deems that they saw the darn thing, at least,
Yeah.
yeah. So because without that, I don't have any degree of certainty whatsoever or confidence that that agent actually showed my offer.
And there are times and there are agents that will not present all offers.
Mhm.
They just won't do it.
Yep.
If they don't think it's going to be in their personal best interest, regardless of the clients, they may
Right.
not show your offer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
They may be double end. Yeah.
Double-ended, they skipped ours,
Yep.
accepted theirs.
Mhm.
Yep.
She got paid twice.
Yep.
Oh,
Title companies.
So, and
Yeah.
if you have any suspicion that that's going on, demand that
Yep.
initial on there. I do.
It means that they had the buyer and the seller on the deal. So if you've got the buyer and the seller and you're going to collect both commissions off it, even though it's a $5,000 less deal than what the other one came in at, I'm not even
You
going to show
want the
that one because I
seller-
want this one. I want to
You
get
want the
both ends
seller
of
to be
it.
aware of that,
Mhm.
if nothing else.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All right, guys, I think that's it.
Thanks,
We've
everybody.
got the contract covered. So next week, we are not having any class. The following week, we are having a class on Wednesday at 1:00.
oh, for that.
That's the buyer broker agreement class. So Wednesday, is it the 28th?
29th? 29th.
29th?
29th.
Right. Yeah, Wednesday, the 29th at 1:00, we will be having the buyer broker class.
Do you have enough people
I'm having it.
like yesterday?
No, yeah, I'm having that class. I'll be here.
I'll be
Um,
there.
I'll be here.
So then the question becomes, during, after the first of the year, and I'm happy to help participate if you want. But do you want to go through the balance of the addendums and the Binzer?
Yeah, we want
all
to do
that
it.
other
I think the
kind of
Binzer
stuff?
class is the first one that I want to do at the beginning of the year. So the next class after that, we'll do a Binzer class on how to write an effective Binzer.
I wonder if the new form will be out by then.
I
Probably not.
doubt
First
it.
quarter. Yeah.
We'll probably have to do another one
Yeah.
probably in a month later,
Yeah. Okay.
but at least we'll do it right. The essentials will still be the same.
Yeah.
How to write an effective Binzer, and that's how to fill out your Binzer so that the seller's agent and the seller will actually take you seriously and not just reject it and throw it back.
So that'll be on January 7th.
Yeah, is that the what week? Is that a Wednesday?
Oh, no, that was the Friday. It's going to be Wednesday.
I'd rather do Wednesdays. Wednesdays are a better day because there's not as much, Fridays we have the luxury tour and that kind of stuff that always makes it kind of difficult to get stuff done. And Friday afternoons can get kind of tough. Wednesday the 5th, is that okay?
Will that be recorded?
Yeah.
No, that'll be out there.
Yep. Wednesday the 5th
Yeah,
at 1 o'clock.
I might be in Oregon then, but
I'll record it anyway.
okay, cool.
You can always tune in from Oregon.
What time do you think, what time does the arcade trip end typically? By like 11:30 to 12?
Yeah, and that's the first Wednesday of the month too, isn't it? I forgot about that Arcadia tour.
There was none on the last.
There's nothing scheduled.
This month there wasn't an
No, no,
Arcadia
no.
tour; they canceled it.
I don't think there will be on the 5th either.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Probably not. They might not have that one. All right, that's all we got, guys. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye, Leela. Bye, Luke.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Carolyn?
I don't think he's really there. He hasn't unmuted or said anything the whole time. I think he just turned.
Bye,
it on.
guys. Hi, I'm here. I've been here the whole time.
Hey,
Bye, Luke.
Carolyn.
Carolyn.
Yes.
How's your little one feeling? Is she doing better?
Oh, Stephanie's
Probably
way
would
better.
yeah, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Is she?
Stephanie's way better. My son's fiance has it now. And I'd like to get
Oh.
those essential oils from you for the respiratory stuff.
I've had them out since Tuesday afternoon, and I just haven't gotten back to get it. But I'd be happy to meet with you. So
I'm happy to come meet you and pick them up and pay for them or whatever.
Are
I
you
need
going to
do.
be? Are you going to be at the office for a little bit longer? 'Cause I have
Yeah.
throat cough drops for you too.
Oh.
So I just Stephanie doesn't need the herbal stuff at this point.
She could
Or she
definitely
wouldn't do
use
it
it for the
anyway.
respiratory and the cough. Yeah, because she's still got residual of that, but she's not.
Well, so some of the herbal stuff that I took for it, for respiratory, I'll put some of that in a bottle to give to her, and then I'll bring you the other stuff. I can be there in about within an hour. It might
Yeah, I'll be here for a while.
Will that
Mhm.
work? Okay,
Yeah,
cool. I'll
absolutely.
come by.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.